Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So this has been a highly requested video. This is my Oxides v Inks comparison video. So if you want to see a little bit of information about both, then just keep watching. Alright, so you guys have known for a while that I've been on the distress train. I now have all of the oxides, including the 3 new colours, and I have about half of the inks. Now I made the oxides only come, I'm going to give you as much information as I know. I am not an expert, I'm going to make that really clear. A lot of this is going to be me experimenting and seeing if it works and if it doesn't, and telling you what I know from playing with oxides for about 12 months or so. So Distress Oxides only come in the big container, and they come in this sort of grey one. The inks come in black. I do have just one full-sized Distress ink, and that's sort of the difference between the two. Same size, stack lovely, just one's black and one's grey, and that's how you can tell the difference really easily. So the main difference here is that the ink itself is just a dye ink. So it's just got the dye ink into it. It's very, very similar to other kinds of inks. A Distress Oxide is technically a hybrid, so it's got the pigment ink in it. So it's got the dye ink in it, but it also has a pigment which kind of makes it react a little bit differently. They are both good, they are both for different things, although you can use them for the same thing. Do you need both? No. Are you going to get the same results with both? No. You're going to get very different results with both, which is what I hope to be able to show you. So I've just grabbed Cracked Pistachio because it's just one of those ones that I've got both of, and I want to show you a couple of things that I have already pre-done so that I can sort of get my organization happening. Now I've stolen this idea. This is an absolutely brilliant idea from Justine Hovey. I will link her video down below. This is my memory deck spinner, and I don't use it because I put all my stuff in a box. What I've done, or what she's done, and what I've then done, is gone and cut out a bunch of cards that are going to sit in here that I can play with some blending options. So I haven't done that yet. That's sort of my Christmas break, like I'm getting a break, Christmas break kind of project that I'm going to sit here and play with some inks for a while. But I have redone my swatches. So I used to have them on plain paper and they just weren't strong enough. So I've gone through and done the oxides. I've also learnt how to blend where I didn't know how to blend before. So I've kind of gone that shade kind of thing. So it's dark at the bottom and it's sort of a bit lighter at the top, so I can see the difference. And then you've got the inks. Now, like I said, I don't have all the inks, so I've just done what I can. So I've put the blend at the bottom and then done a stripe of the ink because I like to do that. I think that's a really cool way to add the dye ink, is just to do a stripe across the page. So just to show you what these two colours look like side to side. So we've got Cracked Pistachio blended and with the stripe, and then Cracked Pistachio with your blending with the oxide. As you can see, they actually end up looking really, really different. So that's sort of where the fun comes, because they are different. So I'll actually give you a proper demonstration. So I'm going to do 2 demos. I'm going to do demos using the brushes and demos using the ink blending tools. They are the 2 that I have. I don't have any other kind. I don't have the same ink blending tool, like the same brush for both ones. I've got one for oxides and I've got one for ink. So that just to don't mix them up, because it will slowly kind of erode, I guess, the ink pad, and it will not sort of, won't give you such a nicer result. So I'm just gonna draw a line down the middle here. Obviously we don't have to be completely perfect with this, but so we'll start off with the ink. Now I'm going to start with the oxide because I actually find blending with the oxides a lot easier. This is, just in case anyone's going to ask, this is the American Crafts, I think it is. No, Recollections white cardstock. I just cut it out using the Cricut, so I got this shape. It was actually the boo-boo version of the ones to go on the memory decks. I forgot that the spinner was actually smaller. So I'm just going to show you sort of how I blend. Now, the blending has a lot to do with the tool, it has a lot to do with the surface, and it has a lot to do with the paper. A lot of people say that the best paper to use this on is like Nina Solar White Smooth or something like that. We don't have that here in Australia, so I just use what I can. I generally find with the oxides I can get a really good blend. I don't find the same thing with the inks. I have trouble with the inks blending, which is why I don't tend to use them for blending. So anyway, just sort of show you. So I start off the page and then slowly come onto it, and that's where you sort of get that nice kind of blending thing happening. And the more you build it up, the nicer the blend. So sometimes this looks a bit iffy at the start, and then as you blend it, you'll slowly kind of, or as it sort of gets onto the page and gets a bit wetter or slicker, it'll slowly start to blend together. I also find the oxides are a lot more forgiving. I can tend to get a better result, like if I do something silly, like I'll show you something. So if I do something really silly like that and put just a little bit too much ink on it, I can find a way to get that to blend out. Whereas if I do that with the ink, which I'll show you in a second, I have real trouble there. That's sort of a bit hard. So for my oxide inks, I use my Tailored Expressions brushes, which I got from Art and Craft Supplies. I do know they're sold out right now because I tried to buy some more. I love these, but you don't have to get these ones. You can just get the plain kind of ones like these ones. I got these ones, I think, off AliExpress. So I'm going to show you how I blend with these ones. Now, the way I know they're for inks is that they've got a little star on the back. That way I know not to use them for the oxides. Not that I ever would, but just in case. So I'm going to use the exact same method. There's nothing changing there. Just tidy this up a bit. But we'll just use the inks this time. So I'm just going to use a tissue just so I don't get my hands all inky. So same colour, same technique, same paper, similar style of brush, not the same brush, but a very different result. So the dye ink tends to to me it looks like it is easier to move it around on the page, but you don't get a smooth as result. It's a very different finish. Still looks lovely, but it's just not quite as smooth as the oxide. I do find this a little bit harder to blend. Just a little bit. I might just grab one more colour so I can show you like a dual colour, and I'll just stay in the same colour family. So this is Lucky Clover. I think I have Lucky Clover in here. I do! Who would have thunk it? So we're staying in the same colour family here, and I'm just going to bring in a little bit of Lucky Clover for the oxide. Just sort of come up the side here. You can see how I can get that to blend reasonably easily, just going back and forth. And I can get that nice smooth finish. With the ink, I think I'm going to find this a little bit more complicated, but we'll give it a shot. And the best way to blend them is just to kind of work back and forth between the two colours. So I tend to put my lighter colour down first and then the darker, and then go back with the lighter. There you go. So you do get a bit of a blend there. It's just a slightly, it just looks different. It just looks different. That's all. That's all. So that's using the brushes. Using the ink blending tools, I'm not as good at this. I find this really difficult. I don't particularly like the ink blending tools. I feel like it doesn't give me as soft a finish as the brush. But it is a way to use them, and they are very easily accessible. They are very cheap. I think I have, I don't actually know how many pads I've got, but I have, I think, about 6 of the lids and the actual brushes, and they just come off. They're just foam blending. They're just foam pads. So that's sort of the oxide, and then I'll show you the ink, and then I'll do a bit of blending, try and do a bit of blending to see if I can get it to go. Having the smooth surface underneath of the glass mat just helps you move from sort of the off the page to on the page. If you don't have a glass mat, you can just use like an acetate sheet or a laminated sheet. It does a very similar job. So you can see I'm not getting as smooth with the foam blending tool with the ink. and do a bit of blending. A lot of people have different foam blending tips for different inks. I just find that I don't use them often enough to need that, so I just stay in the same colour family, and these two are pretty close together, so makes it a bit easy. There we go, so you can see you can get a really smoothish. I could work that a lot harder and get a much smoother blend, but because we're just doing examples, and then I'll show you with the Lucky Clover. So you can still get the blend, but it's just not as smooth. It's just not as smooth in my experience, in my opinion. So there we go. There's the two kind of side by sides using the brushes and using the ink blending tools. Like I said, there are other tools that you can use. I know scrapbook.com has domed foam blending tips, which I would so love to get my hands on because I feel like that would work a lot better. But of course they're in the States and it's a little harder to get those sort of things. So unfortunately we haven't quite been able to sort that out, but I'm sure one day I can try. Sort of on the bottom of the list. So the other thing that people wanted to know, because I'm going through all the questions you guys have sent me, is how they differ when reacting with water. Because the best thing about the Distress, in my opinion, is that they do react with water and they give you some cool effects. So what I've done, exact same piece of cardstock, I've just put a line down the middle. This is the ink, this is the oxide. I'm just going to spray it and we're going to see the difference. I don't think there's too much of a difference, to be honest. I don't really use too much of the ink. I don't tend to use water too much with the inks. I tend to use it more with the oxides. You guys have seen that 100 times before. But I thought I'd show you just so you could see sort of live how it works. Or, you know what I mean? So I'm just going to spray this a little bit. So just the same amount of water on both sides. Just going to give that a couple of seconds just to react. So you'll be able to see it really slowly kind of oxidizing here. And then I'll just grab my tissue and blot up all the excess. So I left that for about 15 seconds or so. I wasn't counting, but then we'll just put the tissue or tissue paper or whatever you want to use. So this just, so looking at it, this just sort of gives you a bit more of a overall, whereas this gives me that speckled look that I really, really love. It's just a difference, but they still both will react with water, but they're just a different way of reacting. So it just comes down to what you prefer, and I really prefer the oxides. You can use both for splatters if you're a splattering kind of person like I am. And I'll show you an example of that too, because the splatters also look different. And this is where I have fun sometimes mixing the oxide and the ink, because you can mix them. You don't have to use them separately from each other. So I've just put a little squishy of both on here and just a spray of water. So this is my oxide. I'm just going to flick. Oops. I don't want to get too many examples on the wrong side, so just do a bit of flicking. The flicks tend to give you a more chalky kind of finish. That's sort of the way I explain it. It looks a bit, they don't look as vibrant, they don't look as, what's the word I'm looking for? Saturated, that might be a good word. So I'm just cleaning the brush off just so I can put it into the ink. I'll just cover this side up. Same thing with the ink. So exact same colour, it just gives you a different finish. It just looks a little bit deeper and a little bit, yeah, a little bit more saturated. I think that's the right word. So just completely different finishes, but you can mix and match. You can put the inks on the oxides or the oxides in the ink if you want that chalky finish on top of your ink blend, or if you want a more saturated finish on top of your oxide blend, which I do all the time. That's sort of the bonus, I guess, of having both and being able to play with both. So I'll let that dry and I'll show you again at the end. So the last thing people ask about all the time is actual stamping. Now stamping, this is where I got very, very confused, because I thought that the ink would be the better stamping thing, and it's not. It's really not. So I've just grabbed, this is a lawn fawn set. I just wanted something solid so that I could show you. So I'm just grabbing this little heart out. So I'll show you. I'm trying to stay with cracked pistachio. I keep going to Lucky Clover and I don't know why. So I'll show you the finish you get when you stamp with the ink, which is not what you expect. It's a bit patchy. It does work, but it's very much like the blend. It's got that sort of not quite smooth look to it. Whereas when you stamp with the oxide, it is a different finish, but it's, oh, whoops, that did not work. It's a different finish, but it's a lot smoother. So they're the sort of the differences. I'm also just going to really quickly see if I can line that up so I can use that same heart. I can actually. I just want to show you, you can also play with water with these. So if you you like the ink finish but you don't like the patchiness of it, you can kind of use these. You can use both as watercolors, but you can, that's the wrong kind of brush. Thank you. I knew my other brush was here somewhere. So I've just got a little bit of water happening over here just to wet my brush a little bit. But you can kind of paint with these and kind of pull it together. Oxides work better, but you can get the ink to move so you can sort of solidify it a little bit more. And if you need to, you can squish it down on your mat, add some water and actually paint with it. Now, obviously I'm doing this really quick, so it's not going to be 100% perfect, but you can kind of deepen it and kind of move the ink around to try and get yourself a smoother finish. And I'll show you the same thing with the oxide. See if we can fix this little boo-boo over here. You can kind of move the oxide around. It will give you a much chalkier finish, but it will move a little bit easier, if that makes sense. There we go, completely saved that heart. There we go. Ink V oxide. The only other thing I'll show you really quickly, if I've got enough room on my stamp block. So I want to show you the other cool thing you can do with both when you do pull in a stamp. Now, like I said, you're going to get a much better finish here with the oxide. But so you can do like a half and half. And I'll show you. So I'll stamp both because I'll show you both of the final results. So you just sort of half stamp your ink. I never panic too much about getting them mixed up if they're similar colours. I worry if they're far apart. And then we'll do the same thing with just a little bit of water. You can kind of get them to blend together like watercolours, which gives you a really cool finish. I'm actually really liking the ink finish here. I didn't think I would. Because every time I've used ink, it gives me a really kind of dotty pattern, kind of very much like this, but worse. So again, it's going to chalk up a little bit. Whenever you add water, it'll chalk up, but it'll give you a really cool blend. And especially if you're going colour to colour, like I've kept in the same colour family, but if you want to go sort of opposites, that's a lot of fun. And that's sort of the next frontier for me, is playing more with what are the good blending combinations. I'm very happy to stay in the same colour family. I do that all the time, but I'm very excited by a lot of stuff that I've been sort of seeing on the internet between the colour catalogue, which I'll link down below, which will give you some really good sort of colour combination ideas, and people like Kay Werner. She has some of the most amazing colour combinations ever, and I don't know how she thinks of them. But that's what I want to do with these cards. I want to sort of do some maybe 3 or 2 blend combinations, so that just at a glance, if I want a card that is this, I know I can go to that colour combination. It's going to give me the kind of thing I want. So there we go. That's sort of my I guess, intro to inks v oxides. I hope that's made sense. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I've just been playing with them for 12 months and so sort of have got my head around them. But if there's anything else you want to know, please let me know. Ask me down below in the comments, or of course you can find me on any of my socials. Feel free to send me an email if you want to. I can definitely do a follow-up video to this and we can see if we can learn a little bit more together. I am slowly collecting all of the little inks. It's going to be a very slow process, but I do just grab the new oxides when they come out now because I've got all of them. But I do want to get another set of my Tailored Expressions brushes just to use with the inks, because these are fine, but they're not the same size head and I don't like them as much, but they do work. They do work. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for requesting it for all those people who did. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on all of my socials as well. And don't forget to come and catch me on my live this Wednesday at 8 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. And I'll catch you in my next video. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!